Is that yours? Oh, that's yours, you did it right
That's
over.
mine. I did it in advance, so as not to forget anything. All right. So, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the library. You have some sticky notes on your desk. And what I'd like you to do is just take a couple of minutes and look at those. And I'm going to write on the board over here, 2 words. While you're looking at your question, it's a-okay if you have no idea what these words are talking about or what they even mean or how they relate. But I'd like you to take a look at your questions. And once you've got an idea, just even a guess, come up and put one in the thick column and one in the thin column.
What are they putting in for? Sticky
They
notes?
have questions. They have 2 sticky notes at their desks. So they have questions and they're just putting them up on the board. That's great. It is a-okay that you don't know. We're going to be talking about thick and thin questions today. So after that was our little do now activity to kind of get your minds reeling. The first thing we're going to do is talk about our agenda. We're also going to talk about our essential question for today. So it's what information can we learn about the Pilgrims from primary sources that we can't learn from history books. This is kind of relating to what you've been talking about in class. I've tied it in with your teacher's essential question. So we're going to be thinking about the information part of this essential question. So we've done our do now activity. We're going to go over our agenda. We're going to talk about thick and thin questions. So just that information right up on the board there. Then we're going to talk about primary and secondary sources. And again, it's okay if you have never heard of these terms before. We're going to go over them and you're going to be super confident with them later at the end of the lesson. Then we're going to do an activity, which I know everybody loves. Then we're going to have time for brainstorming, and then we'll wrap up the day. I have our I can statement right up here. So I can write 2 thin and 1 thick research questions. By the end of the lesson today, you will be able to confidently say that I can statement. Does anybody have any questions? All right, let's get started. So thin questions are questions that have quick answers, questions that are looking for just the facts. We're not looking for something super meaty or super in-depth. We're looking for just the facts. So an example is, when did the Pilgrims write the Mayflower Compact? Why might that be kind of a thin question? Yes?
One simple answer.
It's
Just a year.
It's just a year or a day maybe. We can't go on and on about it because we're asking one question, getting one simple answer. Beautiful. So we can usually find these answers really quickly in those encyclopedias and textbooks. We've looked a little bit at these when we've talked about databases before. These are secondary sources. By secondary sources, I mean they're information written by people that weren't there to witness it firsthand. They've gathered up all the information, they've gathered up all the history, and they've given you just the facts. So I think that those are really great places for us to look when we're looking for answers to thin questions. Our thick questions, a little bit different. They are obviously thick. They're a lot more different. They have longer, more thoughtful answers. You can't just answer a thick question in 1 word. So one of our examples is, how did the Mayflower Compact help the Pilgrims? Can I answer that in 1 word? No, that how word. If I said, did the Mayflower Compact help the Pilgrims? That's a super easy question, yes or no. But that how means we have to do a little bit more digging. So let's look back at the questions we had at the beginning of class. You might start to think, oh, maybe I should have put my question in the other file. Maybe I should have put it somewhere else. So let's take a look. So we have our thick questions over here. What makes you interesting? Excellent. No. Can I answer that in 1 word? No, I hope not. Everybody is way more interesting than just 1 word. How old are you? Ooh, that's tricky. Is this going to give me a really big, long answer? Depends on how old you are. And yeah, we probably shouldn't ask for a thick answer to this question. Do we think this still belongs in our thick column? Let's move it over here, excellent. All right, and then what is your favorite memory? Does that seem like it's in the right place? I think so too. All right, so let's take a look at our thing questions. What year were you born? Simple answer, absolutely. What is your favorite color? Easy, gray, moving on. Everybody's favorite, no, just kidding. What was your childhood like? Now, you could answer it with one word, happy, but would we want to maybe have something more? Would that kind of be something that we'd want to tell a story about? We'd want to maybe put that over in the thick column. What do you guys think? Yeah. All right, so we've got some really good examples of what is a thick question and what is a thin question. Does anybody have any questions, thick or thin, at this point? Good. All right, so we talked a little bit about secondary sources. So sources of information that aren't original. They weren't written by the people who were actually there. Like online encyclopedias or regular print encyclopedias are really great for helping us finding the answer to thin questions because they're full of just the facts. They're not going to give us a ton of information about feelings or thoughts or emotions. They're going to give us basic facts. So our thin question from earlier was, when did the Pilgrims write the Mayflower Compact? Now I went on to Britannica Online Encyclopedia and I looked up information about the Mayflower Compact. And could I have somebody actually raise their hand and could you read me that very first sentence? James, go for it.
All the adult men on the ship signed the document on November 21st, 1620.
Boom! So what's the answer to our thin question, when did the Pilgrims sign our Mayflower Compact? What's the answer to that? Do we have the answer? Is it right over there?
November 21st, 1620.
Boom! Beautiful. November 21st, 1620. That's the quick answer to our question. Do you think information like this is going to be helpful for our research? I think so. I think it's important to include information that are answers to thin questions in our research because we need to have a bigger picture of everything. So thin questions, even though they're thin and even though we can answer them really quickly, they're still really helpful, especially for our readers. We want to give them those quick facts and information. So this is our secondary source. We went to the encyclopedia and we answered our thin question. The opposite of a secondary source is something called a primary source. What do you think that might mean? Primary source. Any guesses?
First person.
Yes! It's a source of information, or sources of information that were created at the time that we are talking about. So we're talking about letters, or photographs, if it's some time when there were cameras invented. We're talking about maps, songs even. So information that was created at the time that we're studying. Those kinds of things are great for helping us answer thick questions because they're detailed. And they let us see in depth into the actual historical events we're studying. So we're going to take a look at a letter from William Bradford. You may have heard of him already in class. He's somebody that's very important for the Mayflower Compact. It's okay if you don't know who he is right now. All we need to know is that he was kind of an important dude for the Mayflower Compact. So we're going to look at a letter by William Bradford. What kind of things do you think we could expect to learn about someone by reading their letters? What might you write about?
How they felt about things going on at the time.
Absolutely, how they felt about their events, what's happening to them in the minute. Absolutely. Anything else? Any other ideas for what we might learn?
What they're doing?
What they're doing, exactly, while they're living it. I think that's so cool. So, we're gonna take a look at a letter. Let's maybe just think of a thick question we might wanna ask if we're looking at a letter from someone that's really important to the Mayflower Compact. At this point, we might brainstorm a little bit. This is like breaking the fourth wall part of things. Essentially, I would want to guide the class to talking about the character of the men in the Mayflower Compact. So what were they all like? What were these men that were trying to write the Mayflower Compact and build this colony? So I've got a letter. He didn't write it to me. I have a letter, or a part of a letter from William Bradford. So get a copy. Now, obviously, the Pilgrims were a little bit fancier than we are today. Their language is a little bit different. I don't expect you to totally understand everything that's happening in this letter, but I would love for you to take just a little moment and circle any words that pop out at you. Circle words that you think are kind of interesting or important. And again, if you're having trouble reading it, don't worry, just read through the words that you do know. We can use that 5-finger rule we've talked about before with the just right rules if you're feeling a little nervous. But any words that just kind of pop out to you. I'm going to give you maybe, in real time, about 30 more seconds. All right, so what kind of words are popping out to you? Let's pretend we've all read it, circled a bunch of words. What are some words that have popped out to you, and we'll highlight them on the screen. Yeah.
England.
Let's see.
Right in the middle, a little.
Oh, yes. England. Beautiful. What else? Yeah.
Favorable terms.
Favorable terms. Mrs. Ahern wishes she was taller. Yes. What else?
For their good.
Ooh. For their good. All right, yeah.
What does sun-dry mean?
Oh, sundry is like lots of things all together. Not like sun-dried tomatoes. Would be interesting. That's a good question. All right, we could go on. You know, for me, when I was reading it, I thought he mentions a lot of these words about happiness and hearty thanks, affections. What is this? What are all of these words kind of telling you about William Bradford as a person?
Seems friendly.
He seems friendly, yeah. He might be still thinking about England a little bit, because England shows up in his letters. He seems kind of friendly. He's talking about doing things for the good of everyone around him. Beautiful. And we've got hearty thanks and affections. What this can do is, if we can develop, our thick question that we talked about, what kind of person was William Bradford, or what kind of people were working together to write the Mayflower Compact? That was one of our thick questions that we just brainstormed. Do you think we can kind of answer that a little bit by taking a look at this letter? We can at least get a general idea. We might be able to use a secondary source like an encyclopedia or just an online resource. We can get sort of thin questions answered about William Bradford or about any of the Pilgrims. We can get to know their dates, locations, things like that. But by looking at primary sources, their actual words or their actual maps, we can get kind of a bigger picture. And that's where our thick questions come in. All right. So at this point, you also all have index cards at your table. Let's just take a poll. Do we feel, 2 thumbs up if you're feeling really confident about what a thin question is. 2 thumbs up if you're feeling confident on a thick question. All right, so you have 3 index cards in front of you. If I counted correctly, which I didn't. Oh, James, just pretend you have 3. So you have 3 index cards. Our I can statement from earlier was that we are going to be able to write 2 thin and 1 thick research questions to help guide our project. Now your teacher has already given you the general assignment. So with that in mind, let's think about 2 thin questions we might want to answer when we're doing our research on the Pilgrims, and think about 1 thick question that you think would be really helpful as you do your research. So take some time, write that question. All right, and we're running out of time, so yes, you've written your questions. Those are amazing. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna collect your questions. I'm gonna meet with your teacher, we're gonna go over them, and then we'll return them to you, and you'll be able to use those questions to guide your research. Does anybody have any questions? No? You guys did really wonderful. Thank you so much. The end.
These are fun colors.